Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. As today we got another episode of reviewing NHL teams offseason so far. As today we're going to be talking about one explosive offseason, as we're going to be talking about the Calgary Flames and how just everything exploded, but then kind of got good, but it kind of, I don't know what to really think about this offseason here with the Calgary Flames, to be completely honest with you. It's really a lot to talk about. But before we get into this video, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. It'll be very much appreciated. And make sure to watch this entire video, as I'm going to be having my buddy Calvin, who is a massive Flames fan, join us a little bit later on in the episode as well. He's going to be talking about all the Flames moves that they just did. And we talked like a week ago, we made a video before everything happened, and now we have to re-record everything, which is kind of funny because the Flames, I told them, I'm like, hey man, it's gonna be fucking hilarious if all the moves happen all of a sudden, and they did. Right before the video was, I was gonna create the video and upload it, everything happened, and just wow, to say the least. There was a lot to unpack with this offseason, so let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about it, and then we're gonna be having my buddy Calvin put his input a little bit later on in the video. So let's get into talking about the Flames' offseason, which I gotta say was kind of crazy, to say the least. Signing Huberto to that massive deal, picking him up in a deal where they got Uyghur as well. An alright mediocre draft, which let's get into their draft. Let's talk about the very first thing up first, is Brad Treliving's draft, which was alright. It was an alright draft. It actually wasn't really fantastic at all. They didn't have a whole lot of picks. They got one decent guy, Roni Tapa, but that's really a Topi Rona. And that's really it. He had some decent stats there for the Finn team. Put up some decent numbers there for the Olinka Gretzky Cup. Great offensive guy. Not fantastic defensively. Might play some games in the NHL, but is very unlikely he won't. In this draft, I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of picks. They were, there were picks that they traded away in this past season when they went 0-4, when they picked up Jonkaruk, and they also traded one of the picks away when they picked up Tyler Toffoli as well. So it's understandable they didn't have a whole lot of picks because they were trying to go for that cup this past season, which they unfortunately fell to the Edmonton Oilers in the second round, unfortunately. Actually, really, for me, I kind of like it. But anyways, sorry, Flames fans, sorry. Let's get back into talking about the next big thing that happened, where they traded Matthew Tkachuk to the Florida Panthers. But let's take a look at before we get to that, all right? What else did the Flames lose? Well, they also lost another big heart for the team, and that was Johnny Gaudreau, who walked away in free agency and walked off to the Columbus Blue Jackets for a 7-year deal worth $9.75 million. They also lost Branson, which good riddance. You don't want him at that AAV. That's just a horrendous deal. You got somebody better out with Uyghur. And then Kelly Yankaruk as well. That's a big loss as well, especially with how weak the depth is for the Calgary Flames right now, which we're going to be getting into a little bit later on as well, and how I'm not excited about the Flames' depth-wise. I like their top six, but their depth is something to be talked about for sure. And losing Yankaruk is a big miss, but he was a rental, and that's what you were kind of expecting him to be. It would have been nice to be able to keep him, especially at that AAV, and only being 4 years. That's a really, really nice contract for Kalle Jonkaruk. So now let's get into the big deal that happened, where they picked up Huberto, Mackenzie Weegar, Cole Schwindt, which is also a decent prospect, and a 2025 first-round pick, which is lottery protected, and that's a steal. This is an absolute steal to get this pick for Matthew Tkachuk, and they only had to trade away a 4th-round pick. So I really, really like this deal. This is a really good deal for the for the Calgary Flames, quite honestly. You get 2 all-star players in both Huberto and Uyghur. Uyghur is a phenomenal two-way defender who could be a top 2 defenseman without a doubt for the Calgary Flames. And I've been hearing some rumors that he might be signing a 6-for-6 type of deal. And if he signs at $6 million, whew, that's highway robbery right there, man. If you're able to get that type of contract for Mackenzie Weegar, that is absolutely amazing. And getting another 100-point player in Jonathan Huberto is also amazing as well. Now, let's kind of get into talking about the signings. Now, they didn't do a whole lot up until they signed Matt Japani and Huberto just a few days ago. We'll get into the first few ones. Kevin Rooney, all right, signing 1.3. I'm not a big fan of him. great defensive guy, though. He plays really good defensively, so I guess that'll be a big thing, but he does not really move the puck, like, at all. And when you have already guys like Trevor Lewis and Milan Lucic who can't move the puck, like, at all, it's going to be pretty hard to play alongside of those guys, and I'm scared about this fourth line. You want to know why? Because this line is not going to be good at all. No offense at all from these guys. You're going to maybe see some good defensive numbers from them, but my God, they are going to be eaten alive if they can't get that puck out of their own zone. Zadorov, also a really good deal. Great defensive defenseman. At a good deal as well, 3.75 for the next 2 years. If you could stay out of the box, that would be amazing. But let's talk about the big deal. Jonathan Huberto. What's my thoughts on this Jonathan Huberto move, and what's my verdict on it, and what do I think? Now, when I first seen this contract I thought was absolutely horrendous. It's buyout proof. It's really hard to get out of. It really, really is. If this contract, it could really end up backfiring in the faces for the Calgary Flames. But then I was looking at some numbers. Someone brought up, I really love this guy. I would recommend you guys going and check him out on Twitter, Jesus. Byron Bader. This guy was talking about how usually playmakers like Huberto, because Huberto is your stereotypical playmaker. He's not a great skater. He's a little slow on that end, but is a great facilitator, is absolutely amazing at passing the puck, and, could throw up a few goals as well. But he goes in, seeing some in a few years that Huberto contract is going to be a big problem, which is what I was thinking at first as well. But is it? Elite playmakers tend to last in the NHL for a long time and can keep producing at a star rate well into their 30s. And there's a list of players, Yager, Waite, Zemanov, Forsberg, Whitney. A lot of these guys, play like they're stars until usually they retire. You look at Datsuk and Zetterberg and Getzlaff. A lot of these guys play elite until they're a little bit older, and that also could happen to the exact same thing for Jonathan Huberto here. Now, there is also a huge risk with that thing. He could taper off and go down, 50, 70 points per season, and that $10.5 million contract might not be worth it. But in the end, I think you could have Huberto be a producing guy all the way up until he's 35, 36. He's definitely going to trail off near probably the last 2 years of that contract, as it is starting off at, 30. But you're probably the first 5 years, you're going to be seeing the best hockey from Jonathan Huberto. And the rest 5 could be really all up to, I don't know, luck, really. It could end up being really bad, but it also could end up being really good, where Huberto could just play absolutely fantastic throughout the rest of his contract. Now, do I think 10.5 is a little steep for Huberto? Yeah, I think 10.5 is a little steep. I think that's why the Florida Panthers traded him away in the first place, because Tkachuk at $9.5 million for 8 years was just too hard to pass away. I mean, I would even pay Tkachuk that type of money more than what I would pay Jonathan Huberto, without a doubt. Now, if it was Huberto at 9.5 for the next 8 years, without a doubt, I would be signing Huberto to that any day. And you try to buy out this contract, the actual current contract, it is super hard to buy out because the amount of bonuses this man has been given. I mean, look at this shit. If he gets bought out in 2027, 10 million, 10 million, 7 million, 10 million, 5 million. The last year you save a little bit of money just because he's only getting paid $5 million in the signing bonus, which is just absolutely just crazy. So I think that this contract is... It's a flop for me, because if Huberto really could play really well and continue that playmaking type of style, which I think he can, I think he could play really well throughout majority of this contract, but I think near the tail end, that value of that $10.5 million will really start to blow away. And this is a team where I almost honestly thought they could have just done a retool and really kind of tanked and, picked up some picks. But knowing the Flames, this was definitely not going to happen. If they can stay competitive, they're going to stay competitive. And with this Huberto move, that keeps them in that competitive race. So I see it as an all-right contract. Not amazing, just all right. The Mangiapane move, whew, I love it. 3 years at 5.8 for this stud. 35 goals this past season. I mean, what a move for Mangiapane. And also a really good signing on Oliver Kylington as well. 2 years at 2.5. But honestly, two great moves right before the Huberto move happened with Mangiapane and Kylington. And they still have a decent amount of money to spend with about 2.7. Not a whole lot. but could probably get another depth forward in, which I definitely think they do, because you look at that depth and having Jacob Peltier. I mean, Jacob Peltier might play really good this season. Who knows? He played really good for the Stockton Heat this past season. But is he going to be that guy? Is he going to be able to step in the lineup and play right off the get-go and put up good minutes and play really well defensively? That is the big question. And when you have Sean Monahan as your third-line center, I think that you got something a little bit to worry about, or even Kevin Rooney might be even playing as your third-line center. Unless you're really going to rely on your youth and Adam Ruzicki and some other guys to jump up in the lineup, I don't really like your depth. The top six is all right, especially with Toffoli playing alongside of Huberto. I think Toffoli is going to have some career years these next 2 years, without a doubt. But, the second line's all right. I'm not a big fan of Coleman and Backlund on the second line. If you were to able to, maybe get a better second line center, I think that would be huge for the Calgary Flames. But with how limited they are cap-wise, they don't have a lot of mobility. But what I would like to see them do is maybe even trade one of their defensemen away. You really don't need, Shillington would be a guy to keep because, he's an amazing defenseman. But maybe moving one of those guys out might be the ideal situation here for the Calgary Flames to maybe improve their forward core. But I'm going to be talking about hypotheticals. I'm just here to review their team. And honestly, the depth definitely needs some improvement. The defense core is absolutely amazing. I just love their defensive core. So what do I grade this team on their offseason? It's kind of hard to grade. Their draft was very horrible. Wasn't very nice. The deal that they made to pick up Matthew Tkachuk, I would have to say, is a W. You picked up a great defenseman in Mackenzie Weegar, which is sounding like they're going to re-sign him. They're keeping Huberto now for the next 8 years, and they still get a first-round pick. Honestly, they take a dub in that trade. The deals, it was an alright move for Huberto. I kind of dock it down a little bit. Mangiapane was a great move. And also the move to pick up Shillington as well, to re-sign him. I thought that was a pretty good move as well. Honestly, I think I'm going to give this team a B-. There's lots of things to love about this team, but there's also lots of things to hate about this team. I definitely flip-flopping between a C+ to a B-, which is what I originally had him at, was a C- before everything happened. But I think I'm going to go with a B- just because I really love the Mangiapane move. I think that's amazing. The Shillington move is really good. Their depth is really what concerns me. It would have been a higher rating if they were able to get, somebody to go down and play in the depth and not just Kevin Rooney. But we'll have to see what they do. I'm going to give them a B-. Quite honestly, I really don't mind their offseason. They picked up, I really like Weegar. I think their defensive core is amazing. But instead of me babbling on more, let's jump into the interview with my man Kelvin, as we're going to be talking more Flame stuff. So be ready and enjoy, guys. Welcome everyone into the reviewing part of the show, as we got my buddy Kelvin, who is a massive Flames fan. Now, we recorded this, like I said at the beginning of the video, about a week ago. We recorded this. But of course, all the madness continued to happen with the Flames offseason, as they locked up Huberto for a massive contract, which there's a massive debate going on about that, whether it's a smart deal, whether it's bad. We're also going to be talking about Mangiapane and Shillington. But how's it go, buddy? And how you been doing over this past week?
I've been great. There's a lot, like, this offseason, going from, oh God, panic button slamming that thing, to holy crap, we're gonna contend again. There's no worry. It's pretty good feeling, but holy crap, talk about a roller coaster of emotions. Jesus, so much happening in such a, only a few weeks. Just wild.
It has been absolutely wild, and we'll just hop right into the very first thing that we're going to talk about. Of course, we're not going to really talk about the draft very much with you, because there wasn't a whole lot that happened with the Flames draft. They only had 3 picks throughout the draft, trading it for, Tyler Toffoli and also Kalle Jarnkrok, who they picked up as well. So not a lot of draft picks to talk about. So we'll jump into the very first trade that happened, where we'll get into kind of talking about Johnny Gaudreau actually first, and him leaving the team, especially also Eric Branson as well, which good riddance, because that contract is just way too much to handle. But what was your feelings on Johnny Gaudreau leaving the Flames?
Who? That might just say I'm a little salty about it. I mean, am I more likely to boo him over the other guy that also left the team? Yeah, I'm probably gonna boo number 13. Not gonna lie. Now, is it hating him per se? No, but from a hockey fan perspective, when your team gets kind of left with absolutely nothing after giving so much to a player,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it sucked because it's basically Iginla all over again. Like Iginla was the heart of the Flames, and I mean, I can't even remember who we got for that trade and who really stayed. I mean,
Mhm.
to be honest, I think we came out better from freaking trading Dion Phaneuf, and
I
we at
think the
least get.
main piece of that deal that you got from Iglin was Morgan Klimchuk, if you don't remember him.
I know the name, but I do not remember him
He
on the
barely played
ice.
any NHL games for the
Um,
Flames,
but yeah,
and
I mean, frick, yeah, I good riddance. I mean, have fun in Columbus, Johnny. I mean, at least he's out east. He's closer to
mhm.
home, so good for him. But I mean, from a Flames fan perspective and it being salty, yeah, okay. Well, I've already talked to my dad, and he's very adamant. He's going to put Trader on his Gaudreau jerseys in the first game against Columbus. It's going to be right up on the glass there. Um, so, I mean, but
Well,
backtracking a little bit to the draft. Yeah, this
yeah,
year uneventful, but at least the Flames have pretty much a pick in every round except for 3 and 5.
yeah.
So that's bodes well for them, especially if they do want to do some deals at the deadline. Who knows if they're need to or not
Yeah.
per se, if about what we're going to talk about coming up. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
they even stole away a little bit of a first round pick from the deal that we're going to be talking about now, which they got a beautiful deal, I would have to say, in the Matthew Tkachuk, which it still sucks to lose Tkachuk. I think Tkachuk is one of the best wingers in the NHL, and it absolutely sucks to lose a player like that, where the Flames sent Matthew Tkachuk to the Florida Panthers for a fourth round pick. And the Flames got Jonathan Huberto, Mackenzie Weegar, Cole Schmidt, and a 2025 first round pick. Honestly, I really like the deal. I thought getting Weegar, who's a phenomenal two-way defenseman, could play as a top two guy. And I've been hearing he might be signing for a stellar contract. I've been hearing 6 for 6, which if he does get signed around there, like, holy crow, what a steal of a deal. Now, also, Huberto did sign a huge contract as well, which we'll get into talking about after. We'll just talk a little bit about the trade. And Huberto, who was also a big 100-point guy, beautiful playmaker. It's now he's going to have to dish to Toffoli, and I think Toffoli could probably do that. But Huberto has a tough task taking over the Flames. And what was your thoughts on the deal as well?
well, I definitely think it was replacing the 100-point gap that at least one of our guys left us with.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to swap basically a 100-point player for a 100-point player, I mean, so now really the Flames' only task was, okay, what are they going to do about Gaudreau's hole? At least by dealing Kachuk, hey, well, I mean, winger for winger, obviously Huberto was the second highest in points. He was tied with Gaudreau. So, I mean, basically you're getting another Gaudreau, maybe a little, I don't know, a little older than Kachuk, a little less feisty, but I don't think that matters with the way the Flames are set up anyways and the way Daryl Sutter coaches them. I think any player can become. And that was proof with Gaudreau. Just obviously had to do with some of the coaching with him being a way better 200-foot player than he had in past, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't always like, didn't mean Gaudreau had to be hitting people, but it just meant he had to be better on all aspects of the ice. And
I think with Huberto, though, you might not see that defensive game getting improved because he's seen multiple coaches who have played really well defensively. I think Huberto's just that one type of player that he's just so one-dimensional. He's a great passer, no doubt about that, but his defensive game is something in the lack, and that's something that you're going to miss immensely out of both Kachuk and a little bit out of Gaudreau as well.
I know, but I think that's also why maybe Tree Living did try and sweeten that deal by getting Uyghur thrown in
Yeah.
there because that is a huge addition. And if he does sign for that 6x6, like you're saying, how the hell does Tree Living continue to get amazing defensive players for like that kind of money? Because that 6 million would make him the highest paid defenseman on the Flames. And to
And
be looking
he's
at
the
other
best.
defensive contracts in the NHL, that is a steal, like you said. That's absolutely insane. And I would love to see that. I mean, he's the one holdout so far. So, I mean, we got him for at least a year. And then kind of talk about Huberto. Like, I mean, his new contract doesn't kick in until next season anyway. So this doesn't really affect the cap for this season anyways, which is another big thing. Because the Flames could still do something to figure out. There's still time to figure out how to replace Gaudreau. Could just be a
Yeah.
young guy. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, and then yeah, you mentioned a draft pick, you mentioned a prospect. Those are just two extra things to throw in the pocket to sweeten the deal. And it's, I mean, people who are saying, well, yeah, okay, so you basically signed Huberto to the contract you were going to get Kachuk or Gaudreau at,
Mm-hmm.
and they're comparing it, saying Kachuk is younger. It's like, well, Yes, and yes, we did sign Huberto for a little bit more money, but I mean that doesn't, and I guess a no move clause now, but
Yeah, and
it's
it's bio
still.
proof, hardcore.
Mhm.
But yeah, let's get into the Huberto contract, honestly, because this is a big topic of discussion on it being an overpayment and being a little too long, which I do agree. This contract is starting at, the age of 30. He'll be going up all the way until he's about 38 years of age. Now, I pulled out some numbers and I kind of talked about them a little bit at the front of the video, and I'll bring them up with you as well. This guy who I absolutely love, he's a big prospect guy, and Byron Bader on Twitter. And he brought up, how playmakers kind of like Huberto are able to last in the NHL a lot longer and stay like stars. Guys like Pavel Demitra, who was able to play all the way until he retired. Iliash was the same way. Daniel Alfredson was able to play until like he was 39. He was able to play until he was an all-star. Same with Joe Thornton. He was able to play really well for a long time. People have been kind of docking Huberto's skating and stuff like that. But I think Huberto, you probably have a good 6 years out of him. The last 2 years, maybe last 3 years might be a little scary of that contract. But honestly, you got a good 5, 6 years out of Huberto, and then you might see him trail off. Just the toughest thing is you have to have a goal scorer with Huberto for him to continue to be that type of star. So what's your thoughts on the contract? And do you think he's going to be able to play like an all-star throughout his entire contract?
Well, it's tough to say when it is an 8-year deal.
Yeah.
And especially because you have to factor in other contracts, other players, who's going to be around him in a few seasons, right? Who's going to be left? I mean, the Flames pretty much have their main lineup locked in as of now. I mean, they did end up locking in a couple RFAs as well,
Yeah.
and so they got Mangiapane signed for a nice little bridge deal. They got Shillington back for a little bridge deal. I think the only guy who, and he's only got one more year left, and then next year's the RFA is Valimaki. That's on the
Mhm.
defense anyway. So obviously Uyghur's that fill-in guy. And the Flames have young guys too, coming up the pipeline. But yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about it. Yeah, until probably down the road,
Yeah.
especially because most of the Flames contracted players are really only signed through basically 2024. So we got this team set up for a couple more years, right? So two strong pushes for the cup. And I think if they don't do it, then yes, I'm going to be a little more worried about the length of this contract. But I mean, if we just continue success in the next two seasons, I think a lot of guys are going to want to stay in Calgary. A lot of guys are going to resign. I mean, I hope they take team friendly deals. Otherwise, yeah, they're probably not. They're going to go elsewhere to
Yeah.
teams that might want to buy them. But just tree living has proven time and time when you think the Flames are done, you think like the air is out of the balloon and the team's deflated. It's like, oh, actually, haha, you know what? I'm just gonna go make these amazing trades and get
Yeah.
these star players too that want to come play for us. And so it's gonna be an exciting couple of seasons. So just by looking at who we have signed and that the team's pretty much locked in for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. Like right now, the team looks quite well, but like the future is going to be a little bit more concerning. That's why, like, I'm flippy floppy on the Huberto contract because I see it as not a bad move if Huberto can, stay on that pace. But if he doesn't near the end, that's going to be a really, really hard contract to kind of, take in. But the nice thing is now with, COVID kind of being away, and hopefully we're going to have the next few nice years in the NHL where we could see the financial situations continue to grow here for the NHL, and we can see the cap going up. So honestly, it's a tough contract to swallow if the team goes bad, but for now, 10.5 is probably around the range that Huberto would sign at. So, like I said at the start of the video, I'm flippy floppy on it. So let's get on to the RFAs, the little depth signings there for the Calgary Flames. And I still feel like there's a little bit more left to do here for the Flames, unless they're really going to play Peltier as a depth guy or Monahan as a third line centerman. I still think there's a little bit more left to be desired there with the Flames, but they re-signed Mangiapane on a beautiful $5.8 million deal for the next 3 years, which I think is absolutely magnificent. He could probably even make more than that. Like, honestly, he could probably make upwards of $8 million with how good of a year he had last year, and especially the way that he plays two-way wise. And then Shillington signed a really nice two-way deal at $2.5 million for the next 2 years. So what's your thoughts on those deals? And do you believe that there's going to be another move here for the Flames?
I like the deal Mangiapane signed. I think he's leaving the cards in his own hands by signing, a nice little 5.8, nothing too high, no asking, because he knew most likely the Flames wouldn't really go for more than that
Yeah.
at this point. At this point in time, at this juncture, just based on all the other events happening, and I'm sure they still want to get Uyghur down, and they have the cap space to do it, but they don't have a lot of extra wiggle room after that, just because of all these contracts will be kicking in next year.
Yeah.
But I do like that we got him for another 3 seasons. He's leaving the cards in his hands. If he can keep the point production up, then yeah, obviously he's going to demand a lot more money going through that 3-year deal, and then jumping down to Oliver Shillington. I mean, he's a good young defenseman, still proving himself too. Still got a lot to show for,
Yeah.
and then he's a good bottom D guy that just can really help the team out when it's needed, and he can learn from the vets. He can learn from Uyghur coming in. I mean, we still have Tanev, and Tanev was a huge part of the Flames defensive core last season. You just saw them collapse as soon as, and he fought through such a hard injury too.
He
Like,
did.
it was
Yeah.
just ridiculous what he played through, and that just shows the tenacity of Tanev, and that's
Hmm.
alliteration there for you. But I mean, you can only learn from that. I mean, what's the negative of having that kind of player in your locker room to learn
Oh
from?
yeah.
And the only I don't even see anything negative out of the Shillington deal. And again, Tree Living's a freaking wizard for getting all our defensemen under $6 million. Like, that's crazy. I still can't wrap my head around that. How little we're paying for how productive our defense can be.
Yeah, right. And that's the crazy thing. Like, the defensive core is very deep right now for the Calgary Flames, and they're all very cheap. And that's the funny thing about it as well. So, honestly, not a bad offseason for the Calgary Flames. I think there's still a little bit of depth that needs to be worked on there, tweaked a little bit. But we still have some time. We still have about, almost 2 months. Yeah, but 2 months left to go before the offseason ends and we get into the next season, which I'm very pumped about. So let's get into grading. I think with this team, I think I gave them, I think about a B minus. I think I bumped it up a little bit from a C plus to a B minus, just because I don't mind the Huberto deal. But really what brought it up for me was the Mangiapane and the Shillington deals. I really like the both of those deals, quite honestly. So what's the grade on what you think the grade should be for the Calgary Flames this offseason?
I think it's at an A minus. I do. I mean, that could be a bias, but however, the fact that I went from being like, oh crap, okay, well, we're toast. Let's tank for Bedard, to all of a sudden like,
Yeah.
hey, we're a contender again. We can do this still.
Mm-hmm.
We can make the playoffs. We can still contend for the Pacific Division. I mean, we are going to raise our banner, even though something happened in the second round. I'm not going to mention it, but
Acting like
there's more
Nashville
than
there. Acting like
there's
Nashville there.
no, we won the division. You put up your divisional banner if you win. We won the
No, no,
Pacific. We got the Pacific
I'm
banner.
just,
We're not.
I'm just
We
busting
ain't
your
pulling no
balls.
Nashville. I feel like the Oilers would do. The Oilers would totally do something like that. Cup
Oh,
finalists.
get out of here.
Okay. Oh wait, no. You guys are gonna raise a banner on your opening night that says Western Conference finalists. That's what it's gonna say. Oh no, it's just gonna say.
Actually, no,
It's gonna say
we'll be
gets
putting up a
swept by
banner.
Colorado.
We're gonna be putting up a battle of Alberta winners during the playoffs. That's where we're gonna be throwing up for our
No,
banner.
it's gonna say gets swept by Colorado.
No, I think it's gonna be the Battle of Alberta one. I think that's a cup win for all of us.
I mean, the Flames obviously have to figure out what to do, because there's still, again, a hole, because it's not just Gaudreau left or Kachuk left. They both are gone.
Yeah.
And those are 2 forwards, 2 wingers, very productive. And you only brought one guy technically to fill that one side. You need someone
Yeah.
for the other. I mean, the Flames don't really have any proven per se. I mean, just do some line shuffling, see what combinations work. Maybe bring up a couple younger guys. And who knows, right? That could be all you need. Cale Makar for the Colorado Avalanche came out of nowhere.
And I think Peltier might be a big piece to the team this year as well. He was a point per game for the Stockton Heat that past year. And then you got Adam Rosinski. I think I said his name right. He might be a big part of the team as well. Ruzicka. That's a tough name to say. I will always butcher that name, I think, for the rest of my life.
And he's actually an RFA, so he's not signed to a contract right now.
He probably won't sign for too much, though, quite honestly. It'll probably be like
I would think you get the Lewis treatment and probably just do the minimum 800.
Yeah.
Maybe if he swings it, he can probably get, I think, 1.2 if he's lucky. I mean, the Flames have a couple mil left in cap space, so that's why if they're going to do anything, it's going to be cleanup, and I think they're just going to hope that their young prospects can fill in a gap and someone can shine, just like Mangiapane's proven himself over the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
And it's only going to help them out more in that sense with the young guys by now having their AHL team in Calgary as well.
Yeah,
So it just
that'll be a
makes
big
it
thing.
a whole lot easier for the organization to scout their own guys and to call someone up. You're literally in the same building, unless it's on the road or something, but you're in the same freaking building now. And so it's gonna help with at least the prospect pool and development in that sense. And maybe that does help the Flames. Maybe that it was hindering the Flames. Who knows? I mean, they were all in on what roster they had, and they only made call-ups if they absolutely had to. But we could see lots of shuffling down on those bottom lines this season, and maybe that works out. Maybe it doesn't, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the Flames do. Thank you very much, Calvin, for joining me on for this episode of reviewing NHL teams off season so far. It was a fun one. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out all my buddies' socials. His links will be down in the description below. Go check out his Twitter. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.